Hello, hello, and welcome to part 2 of the best of WDT, When Docs Talk, taking you down memory lane for a second episode. On the first episode, we talked about COVID-19 and the women and sheroes in that pandemic. Today, we want to switch it up a little bit and remind you of what you all told us about love and intimacy during the pandemic. Who can forget when everyone was terrified to touch each other, hug each other? But not everyone was. Check out this episode as we talk about love, sex, and dating in the age of coronavirus.
When dogs talk, when dogs talk, when dogs talk, when dogs talk. Talk, when dogs 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 talk.
Hello and welcome to the best of WDT.
Being cautious, wearing your mask is important. And sometimes I think I get on their nerves because I emphasize it a lot.
I feel like in general, did you guys feel like during that time period that we were kind of the Debbie Downers, like healthcare providers? As much as we were heroes and sheroes, we were also the people asking people, wear your mask, don't go out and just be out in these streets like open-faced and just living your best life because you're spreading COVID. Did you ever feel like there was a little bit of antagonism during that time period?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, especially like I said, I had me a baby. Oh no, you're not coming to my house. Not for no Thanksgiving, not for no Christmas. No, you can FaceTime us from 6 feet away from your phone.
Not 6 feet away from your phone. Usually
That's a little much. That brings up our next series, because we kind of went with the theme of coronavirus. We had a whole women in coronavirus series, but then we talked about what it looked like for touch and intimacy. And we did that whole show, love, sex, and dating in the age of coronavirus, because we were getting reports from some of our colleagues that their boyfriends and girlfriends weren't trying to touch them. They weren't trying to deal with them at all. They're like, we can see you after, because they were worried that doctors, nurses, healthcare professionals were going to bring them back something. So it kind of messed up people's relationships. Let's take a look at some of our viewpoints and guests that we had on that episode. Love, sex, and dating in the age of coronavirus. In our poll, one of the questions we asked is, in general, are you scared to touch people during this coronavirus pandemic? And the vast majority of you said that you were. Some of you were a little scared, about 65% of you, but 10% of you are absolutely terrified. Okay. So this is something that we really need to address. Should we be feeling scared like this? What's going on?
Can you get corona from sex?
Yes, that's the main question. Can you get it from sex? So let's talk a little bit about coronavirus and sex, okay? So it's already established that we can spread it easily from person to person through contact. And we all know that it doesn't get much closer in terms of contact than sex, right? It's very hard to socially distance somebody that you are intimately involved with. So let's talk a little bit more about what the literature tells us about coronavirus and sex. Liz?
Right. So, Harvard, we always respect what it is that they say. There's a blog that they put out that talked about how, if you're social distancing appropriately and keeping your risk down, that it's probably safe to continue having sexual intercourse with your partner.
Probably.
Why do you say it like that, Davida? Tell us what you think.
Look, there's always a risk. It just depends on how willing you are to take that risk.
Right. And especially since we also know that there can be asymptomatic carriers, right? So Liz, you're telling us that the Harvard blog is saying if you know the person, if you are sheltering in place with them, if you're quarantining, it should be fine. But, people are going out and about, even to things as simple as the grocery store. So you are taking some sort of risk, is what the experts say, when you have sex, because there might be an asymptomatic carrier, Absolutely.
It says that some people that may have the virus, like you were saying, may not experience symptoms, but you are able to transmit this virus to other people if you don't have these through physical contact and intimacy.
Tanya, one of our members just asked something that has been on everyone's mind, kind of buzzing since the article came out. And that's about what?
So that is from the standpoint of can the COVID-19 be transmitted through semen?
That's right.
Yes. Hearing that, actually, I get asked that quite often from some of my, male family members, some friends. And so we did pose the question, have you heard that coronavirus has been found in semen? And so interestingly enough, it seemed like 51% said yes. So it's kind of 50-50. And 49% said no, that they weren't aware that that was a potential or a possibility.
So it seems like half and half knew. Some people knew that it's in semen. Some people did not know that it's in semen. But the really a more important question, I think, is, does it matter? So what we need to know is that the literature suggests that it may not, even though it may be in semen, it may not be infectious. Mm-hmm. And we'll tell you a little bit about what we've seen at When Docs Talk in terms of the literature. But a really interesting follow-up to that question is we asked our viewers, or the people who filled out that survey, if you did know that it is in semen, how has that affected your sex lives? Well, the majority of you said that it did not affect anything about your sex lives. 57% of people said, doesn't matter, business as usual. There were some people who said that they were having less sex because of that. 2 people who said they will never have sex again now that they discovered that coronavirus is in semen. And then a lot of them. A whole lie.
All the other stuff that's in semen.
Well, it was an anonymous survey, so we won't know who the less than truthful people are.
It wasn't me.
In the words of Jackie, it wasn't me.
Right. According to the American Sexual Health Association, you are your safest partner. They say that masturbation is really the only way to ensure that you won't get it, considering that they are asymptomatic carriers. And the next safest, of course, is someone you live with. You want to avoid close contact with those outside of your home and limit the number of sexual partners you have. The fewer, just like with any sort of communicable disease and sexually transmitted disease, the fewer is always the safer. Then also, I had to put this quote in because I thought this was hilarious. They literally wrote, if you usually meet your partners online or make a living by having sex, take a break. I concur. Or you all can post your questions about it. Yeah, I have a good friend who is an epidemiologist, and he just posted that they're finding new evidence about it in different secretions. Thank you so much, all the way from Greece, Hodges, for tuning in and posting. Other guidelines by the American Sexual Health Association: avoid sexual contact with symptomatic partners. That's kind of goes to stand without reason. And then avoid kissing or exchanging saliva. Now, they're not saying don't kiss. They're just saying that these are some of the ways to make it safest, because we do know that it is in saliva. Another thing that they mentioned, which I thought was important, and I did mention, please, on the ads, this is not a show for children. So you want to avoid sexual activities which involve licking around the anus, because they have found it in feces and do believe that it can be communicated or transmitted, I should say, rather, that way. You also want to use condoms or dental dams to reduce the contact with saliva or feces. And so that is the recommendation. Remember, there were a lot of divorces that took place during that time period.
Oh, really?
People had to stay at home with each other. And, oh, yeah. People were like, now that we get to stay at home, we know that we don't love each other. So that is what happened. It brought some people together, and it actually took some people apart. Let's listen to what our marriage counselor, John, had to say. What were you going to say, Sonia?
No, I just think that's funny. But I guess, too, if you trap together, y'all really get to see each other. A whole nother level.
It's like, oh, shoot, I married a booger bear.
Right. All right, here is John, our marriage counselor, on love, sex, and dating in the age of coronavirus. John Myers is a Christian counselor and relationship expert here in the Atlanta area. He has written a book called Hey, Can We Talk? And what I think is very enlightening about his whole approach is that he often focuses and seems to really respect the value of touch as a way to foster intimacy. So we're happy to have him here on this show when we're talking about marriage and sex, dating, and intimacy. He is also married and a father of how many, John?
3.
3, and a grandfather of
5.
5. Wow.
It's got to be based on communication. Everything has to start with what I believe is communication. Mm-hmm. And when you mention intimacy for a man is a lot different than intimacy for a woman. So many women make a mistake when they say, I want intimacy. And for a man, intimacy means sex.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah.
Now, what happens with...
Yes.
Go figure.
But what I tell women is you're fighting against a DNA. And that's the way our DNA is designed. So in many situations, a man starts with sex and works his way back to intimacy. A woman starts with intimacy and works her way to sex. What we have to learn to do now is how to meet in the middle. And meeting in the middle means I have to be able to communicate with you so you can feel 2 things. And at first I thought this was just important for women, but now I believe, and I'm finding out it's just as important for men. You have to be able in front of your spouse to feel emotionally and mentally naked. Mm-hmm. And what that means is I can tell you anything. Mm-hmm. And you won't look at me like I'm stupid, I'm crazy, I don't know what I'm talking about. Because if I can share anything with you, we can take our intimacy to levels that's unbelievable.
Yeah.
But if I can't share anything with you, then I'm limited on what I can say. So this teaches both people, husband and wife, to say, what's on your mind? I'll listen to it. I don't have to agree with it, but you just have to know that when you stand in front of me, it's a peaceful area. There's no conflict. We can just talk. You can tell me the craziest knock-knock joke, the weirdest story you've heard, and we can laugh together. Now you're teaching me how to be intimate your way, and I'm going to teach you how to be intimate my way. So we're learning each other. But if we come before each other and I say something and you put me down, that's male or female, tell me my idea is stupid or all these things, now communication messes up. We just have functions. Mm-hmm. I'm just functioning here, you're functioning here. We may function together, but we're missing that intimacy.
Right. How has coronavirus affected intimacy? How do you think, as somebody who counsels couples, mm-hmm. how do you think that this pandemic and the isolation that a lot of people are feeling has impacted relationships and intimacy?
Well, what it has is it's actually brought out a lot of things, and it's shown couples we built our marriage on the wrong thing. Mm. And now it's forcing us to go back, tear down that false foundation we have and rebuild it on a better foundation, which is you and me. I didn't build it on my I may have built my marriage on my ego for my job. You know who I am. You know what I've achieved. You know what all these things. Now I can't get to those things. It's me and you now. Now we have to go back and say, we built it on this fallacy. We got to throw this out of the way and let's build it on you and me. Now,
do you think it affected your marriage?
Say again?
Do you think it affected your marriage?
Good question.
Did it affect mine?
Yeah.
No, mine was built on craziness from the jump.
Glad you knew.
I want you to drop one more thing on our viewers. I want you to tell them, I want you to give them advice. How can they manage intimacy through this coronavirus season? And I'm not just talking about married couples, John. I want you to talk to people who are dating, who are looking for love, who are looking for that physical touch that in many cases they can't have safely during this time period. What's your advice?
The advice goes the same thing. There's a place in this world called Earth. And what we need to do is move back to Earth. And here's what I mean. Men have taken on the image of, I have to be super tough, super this, super that. There's no place in scripture where I'm called to be strong, but I'm called to be strong in the Lord. I'm called to do strong things. I don't have to be this great macho tough image. What that does, I'm building a house on a false foundation. It's okay to be human. It's okay to say, I'm stepping in this relationship, babe, I'm gonna make some mistakes. I may make them over and over again, but I guarantee you, if I make 15 mistakes this week, I'm going to make maybe 10 next week, and I'm getting better. It's okay to be human, to try and make mistakes. Not only are men picking this up, but women are picking it up also. Now women are stepping in saying, I got to be better than this man. I got to be better. And it's turning into a competition rather than we can work with each other. Now we're competing against each other. So to help you in the virus, just be human. Be able, and this is where I went back to earlier saying being emotionally and mentally naked. It's being able to share with each other and say, hey, babe, I'm afraid. Baby, I'm nervous. Baby, I'm upset.
You are always a pleasure to talk to. I really appreciate you coming on, sharing your perspective from somebody who not only has a relationship himself, but also deals with many people in relationships, and bringing that male perspective. You know, sometimes we miss the mark as ladies. We don't always see it that way. So thank you so much for coming, for your advice. And we hope you'll be back on When Docs Talk for another show.
Yes, wherever you need to call. For you, the world.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm glad he broke that down for us, because I think we've noticed on our journey with WDT, anytime we've had women talk about a certain subject, especially when it comes to sex, relationships, crossing lines, which we'll delve into that episode, it's been very different from the male perspective. And I feel like he just laid it out there like, listen, ladies, what intimacy means for us is different. We mean sex. What do y'all think about that? Do you think there's been a big difference in our male guests and our female guests and how they interpret it?
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. Because even in some of our
during the coronavirus that men were a little bit more likely to take risks because they still wanted to get it in? Or do you think that people were equally scared and equally not touching?
There was just as many Rosefin shots during the COVID.
For our guests who are not medical, Rosefin is an antibiotic, one that we frequently give for sexually transmitted diseases. So yes, we were popping those shots even during the pandemic. People were still getting it in.
Shot.
I definitely
actually, interestingly enough, one of the things, you know, Atlanta was one of the cities that stayed open. So it was actually one of the club hotspots during the pandemic because all the clubs were open. So definitely a certain demographic, they were still getting their freak on. So Rosefin was had by many.
by many and plenty. We want to bring in a singles perspective, find out what's going on in the world of dating under the age or in the age of coronavirus. One of the questions we asked you all out there was, if you are not married or in a committed romantic relationship, are you having more or less sex? Unfortunately, many of you had to respond less. I don't know how you feel about that, but we're going to bring out some guests to talk about how they feel, how dating is. We also asked our singles who are healthcare workers, Healthcare workers, since the coronavirus pandemic started, are your romantic partners scared to kiss, hug, or have sex with you? Well, one of them, one of our respondents was very open and said that her favorite hasn't been, you all can read, so I'm not going to go there with because he claims he is scared. That is very real, my sister. So it seems that there are some healthcare workers who are striking out because of fear. Y'all remember that comment?
Yes, I do.
So this show was the first show that we actually reached out and had people do polls. So we had our first WDT polls. And so we're like, are people going to be open? Are they going to be honest? I mean, they are anonymous polls, but we really didn't know what to expect. But people responded. They let us know. And this person says, listen, my favorite dick has not been with me because he is scared. Like people just laid it on the line. And I said, I'm going to put that on there. And y'all were like, really? I'm putting that on there because people need to know.
But that captured all the energy. I mean, like I totally felt what she was saying.
Yes, for sure. My partner was not scared to kiss or touch, but I can say that my in-laws would, call every now and again just to make sure I was doing everything per protocol to make sure I didn't make their son and their grandkids and, nieces and nephews sick. So people were worried, but people still, like you said, there were still Rocephin shots. There were still a lot of COVID babies. One of our hosts had a baby during COVID, had a COVID baby. So some people were definitely getting it in.
Yeah, we ain't never scared. Nope.
No, there we go. Without further ado, let's bring on our next crew. We're going to have Cole Scotty and Josh Neville join us in just one moment. All right. Welcome.
Hey, y'all.
How we doing?
Hey.
Great.
I just have to mention I like the pictures, okay?
You want to put them back up there?
Take a moment and look at them.
I can do it because those are very handsome men we have here. So go ahead and put it out there. Cole and Scotty, welcome.
He had to go and show me up in the tux like that.
If I would have known, I got some tattoos real quick, man. We'd have been matching something.
Hey, man, next time.
Let me introduce you all because everyone knows the rest of the ladies here. But Cole is a physician's assistant here in Atlanta. He and I actually work together, and we're so happy to have him here. He's an Atlanta native, I believe. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. Welcome, Cole. And Josh Neville is a singer for a local hard rock band known as G-Bad. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. He's also a personal trainer, a model, and he's a salesman of vitamin supplements. And I can tell you that we are all here and viewers out there very happy to have you here to talk a little bit about what your lives have been like as single men in the coronavirus era. So I'm gonna sit back a little bit and just let y'all people talk about what that looks like. Because I know Tawny looks like she's about to say something.
Yes, she is. Let me jump right into it. So I know that, and EP and I have talked about this before, that in the era of pre-corona, let's call it pre-corona, dating was a completely different dynamic. So you had lots of tools at your disposal. So you had online dating, you could pick up people at bars, you could go out, you could hang out. And I feel like post-corona or inter-corona or corona active, I feel like things are very different. And I've been talking to a lot of my single girlfriends, and I feel like some people are still holding on to the online social media, kind of trying to reach out to people and try to get into dating, and even dating in virtual places separately. How has dating changed for you guys?
You want to take the lead? Or you want me to grab it? I'm good either way. At least for me personally, like at the very beginning of like all the outbreak of it, because a lot of the time, media potentiation of like, I guess for lack of a better term, fear, it was kind of like, okay, I had a friend of mine that, and that was probably the way to say it. I have a friend of mine that we would occasionally meet up and everything like that. So at the very beginning, when things were kind of like, okay, how extreme is it? We just got through World War III happening. Like, okay, how extreme are we doing this? And then, we stopped talking and everything, but then everything locked down. There was barely anywhere to go. A lot of the dating apps and everything, you really couldn't really do much of anything. But even in the midst of it, it's actually been pretty positive for me on the opposite end, just in the weird fact that I feel like rather than to go and hook up at a bar or something like that, where there is that opportunity for it to just take a carnal nature to where it could just be, for lack of a better term, just a hit it and quit it type situation. It alleviates the potential of that. So it's like I've actually.
Are you doing a lot of like, how are you dating? Like, I know that seems like a dumb question, but in certain contexts, how are you dating? Are you going to the park? What are you doing to get to know this person?
Well, in all honesty, things are being taken very, very slow in the current situation, but amidst just conversation, just because obviously we couldn't meet up before things started slowly opening and everything like that. Like, I actually have kind of met someone amidst all this pandemic, and with that being said, it kind of forced us into a situation of in-depth conversation, really kind of shooting candid, getting to know each other, really taking the investment to like, who are you? What are you like? Would we be compatible in real life? And once some things started opening up, we would go up to, I think it was just a little local restaurant where they had like all the different precautions in place, which, we followed and all that good stuff. But it was that, does the chemistry translate in person? And having gone into it with that kind of vocal intimacy that had already been created, it was lightning speed. It fast forwarded so much in that.
Did you wear masks?
Actually, no. We did not wear masks at that, but we did have all the different. You could sit at a table that didn't have an X on it. So
that's amazing. Cole, tell us what it's looking like for you.
Mine is I'm on kind of the opposite end of that spectrum. It hasn't been the best for me because, as you guys said, you can't go out to bars, you can't meet people that way. So I've kind of tried to pick up the whole online dating thing a little more. But if I didn't have confidence in the online dating before, I kind of don't now. Because as Josh mentioned, now we're forced to have those deeper conversations with people. And it's kind of, you find out a little faster that, no, there's not much depth here. So I don't think that, we're going to talk much longer. It definitely takes someone you're really interested in for you guys to kind of make it through that phase where you can't go anywhere. We can only message, and especially being a healthcare provider, I do run into those women who are, scared about meeting up or being in the same area as me. So it's not been the best for me, but this too shall pass.
Okay. Well, talk about meeting up. Anybody, throw it out there. How are people dating? Morgan, you had a story that you were going to tell me about a friend of yours, right?
Yeah. Actually, interesting. I think Cole mentioned walking in the park. I had a friend who met someone online, and in the midst of this whole COVID situation, and she'd been talking to this person for a while, and they decided to meet up at a park, something that was like real old fashioned and traditional, something that, a lot of people today, if COVID wasn't going on, they wouldn't do that. They'd meet at a bar, they go to dinner, but they decided to meet up at the park and take a walk, and they wore their masks. Oh, so they did have their masks on, initially, of course, she said they didn't have their masks on because they, wanted to be able to see who, see if they look like their picture. But they did, after the initial meeting, they walked with their masks on and sort of kept the 6 feet, 2 arms length distance while they were walking. And she said it was really neat because it was just like really old fashioned, and there was something that really felt good about it. Is how she explained it to me.
Sweet. You had me until the 6 feet, okay?
Oh, wait a second, though. So we're talking about, walks in the park and meeting at restaurants once in a while. But like, I imagine that a kiss nowadays, is like a big going all the way. It's like going all the way. Like, tell me about how intimacy advances in the world of dating during coronavirus.
Who would have thought you would have been scared to kiss someone? That's what I'm saying.
Well, are we scared to kiss? By show of hands, who's scared to kiss? Like, if you meet somebody that you're really vibing today, who's scared to kiss? Davita?
I'm scared.
Morgan's scared to kiss. Cole's like, I guess it depends on how she looks. Right.
We gotta use some
I
other.
don't think you're your hand, Josh. Josh is like, nah, I'm not scared. I'll kiss.
You gonna hold hands.
Josh, you're not scared?
Nah.
And then wash your hands.
Oh, we stay hygienic and we stay taking vitamin C. We immunity boosted in this.
Wonderful. What do you think it's going to look like for singles? Like, do you feel like people who are single are feeling frustration? Do you feel that they're feeling hopeful now that things are opening up again? Like, what are people feeling in terms of dating and finding love because of coronavirus? I mean, I know it's always a struggle, but I'm talking about in the era of coronavirus. What's the overall mood? Everyone, give me something.
I think people are reverting back to their exes.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, really? Yeah.
I know so many people.
Speak for
So
yourself.
many people.
Okay, y'all agree with me.
So
Cole,
many
if
people
you
have hit
had
up their ex.
like meeting new women. Have you tried to talk to your old exes?
Yeah.
Actually, I haven't reached back. But
Cole, you're nodding your head yes. You reached out to
Yeah, it happened. You get weak out here in the era of Corona stuff.
With the side eyes.
I mean, I guess if you're
No,
comfortable, you have a general idea of how they move and how they roll and whether they'd be careful or not. So it makes sense. It makes sense. We actually had a poll question that we asked our viewers. Have you been hearing from your exes or people who didn't seem that into you before the pandemic? All of a sudden, are you hearing? And there were quite a few people that said that people are coming from out of the woodwork all of a sudden, trying to get back in. Right?
well, I mean, it's a noticeable difference in the accumulation of thirst trap, and that is definitely happening online right now. Like, come on, come on. People out here trying, they fishing.
That's true.
Great. Well, we just wanted to have this discussion because we talked a lot about relationships. We had married couples and so forth. We want to know what it looks like for you all. So we really appreciate your candor. We really appreciate you coming out there. Is there anything else you want to share with us or, talk to us about dating, looking for love in the age of coronavirus?
Well, just to your prior question about where do I feel this is going for singles, I think that as humans we're pretty forgetful. So I think that in a few months that people are just going to be back out there and we're going to kind of continue on attempting to date in the same way because we need to connect. And if for no other reason, people like myself, we've been in the house and we're like, I need that connection. So we're going to jolt back out there and try to find that person.
I hear you. All right. Well, thank you guys for joining us, for sharing with us. Good luck out there. Be safe out there. That goes for the guys.
Josh, wear your mask.
Wear your mask. Mask or like the new berries as condoms, mask.
Right.
They even got them fashionable now. They even got them all the way fashionable now.
That's right. Like brand masks. Thank you so much for joining. Well,
thank you for having us.
Take care. Thank you so much for joining us for our second trip down memory lane in the best of WDT, When Docs Talk. We've had a wonderful time recapping some of our fun moments from our love, sex, and dating in the age of coronavirus episode. But definitely stay tuned for our next episode because we're going to talk about something else that really hit us during the pandemic. And it had nothing to do with the virus and everything to do with racism and race reckoning in America. Join us for next time. See you then.
When dogs talk, when dogs talk, when dogs talk, when dogs talk. When dogs talk, when dogs talk. When dogs talk, when